Hello, Miss Robin. So let's go through several different things. You're 38 on your glucose got flagged. You're at a 66 when we ran it. Um, and cycles are starting to stop and all sorts of stuff. Um, I can go several directions with this. I want to start just with kind of orienting you. You're going to receive this video, and then you're also going to receive a clinical analysis. That is not a generic document that we send out, Evan. That is me writing up your case. That is your case specific to your numbers, your history, everything like that. It's split into three sections. Section one is kind of the quick overview, kind of tells you the highlights that I want to hit at with your case. Kind of goes over the game plan of how long this takes and what we're looking at. Some comments on the blood work specifically, and then tier two takes each one of those components I go about in tier one. And I usually try and keep it to about 3 to 5 paragraphs of explaining deeper like the chemistry of, okay, what's actually going on? How does this fit your case? How does it come to your symptomatology? Like what's going on? So you can really kind of see like what's going on with your whole write-up. Tier three is an additional kind of add-on. I have a library of stuff that I've written and documents that I've written over the years and thousands of patients of doing this. And that library, there's specific documents that I'll kind of link to. And those are and usually they're anywhere between about 10 to 30 pages long. Almost all of them are fully cited and referenced and stuff like that. So you can see the information and where I'm pulling it from and read the original studies and all that type of stuff. Um, but I listed those in the order of what I think there are the closest related to your case. So there's going to be like, I think there's five on yours. You don't have to read them all because again, 10 to 30 pages, even at a minimum, that's probably going to be 60 to 80, 90 pages altogether. That's like reading a small book. But there's a few that I think I listed them in the order that I really think are quite pertinent to your case. Okay. Now, there's a few things I want to get into just coming right at it. People understand glucose the way we understand glucose is either you're diabetic or not. Now, the way I want to kind of go through your chemistry is actually how I like to go through most chemistry is purely just from the brain's point of view. And your brain's concerned with survival, not symptoms. Your brain is concerned with how do I make it to the next minute, hour, day, week, month, year? Like, how do I just stay alive? Now, what people don't realize is of the tens of thousands of chemical reactions and pathways and stuff that you have going on every minute of every day, your brain says some of those, if they go wrong, we're gone in seconds to minutes. And that's not even exaggerating. Like you're toast quick. And then other pathways can go wrong, and still you've got 60 years. Sure, you might have a symptom or two, but your brain says it's not that big of a deal. I can deal with it for a while. The funny part when it comes to glucose is the scared of what we're taught to be scared of and what your brain's scared of is the exact opposite. Everyone's scared of glucose going high and becoming diabetic, right? The dreaded diabetes. And your brain says, look, I don't like this at all. And it ends poorly. We all know that. Diabetes is an all-cause mortality, meaning anything you have having a blood sugar issue on top of it makes it worse. In fact, blood sugar issues can actually cause most of the other problems. But your brain says, this kills me in years to decades. Again, we don't like it, not defending it, but your brain's like, it isn't scary. It's unfortunate. It's not great. It's going to end poorly, but it's not scary. And your brain says, but this, that's scary. That can kill neurons and high performance cells in minutes to hours. Your brain says, and not only do I hate this, but I hate the instability as well. Blood glucose going low or chaotic, here's where people kind of miss it. You actually learned about this back in middle school and high school science class. Do you remember learning about the mitochondria? The mitochondria produces energy, right? Called adenosine triphosphate. Well, energy is what keeps a cell alive. Did you know every single cell in your body has its own mitochondria? It has to make its own energy. Every cell in your body is its own living entity. It's its own little environment and it has to produce its own energy. You don't have this central energy organ that ships energy out to everything else. Nope. Every single cell. Neurons have to produce their own energy to make a signal. Muscles have to produce their own energy to contract. Your liver has to produce its own energy to run enzymatic function and clearance and all this type of stuff. Every cell in the body has to make its own energy to perform its function. So your brain says, do you understand that if a cell runs out of ATP, that cell dies immediately? Did you know the average muscle cell? So like the average muscle cell has around 1,000 mitochondria per cell, just in one cell. That's just to contract, relax, and hold tone. The heart, the average heart cell can have around 5,000 mitochondria per cell, which is great because we want that thing to have enough energy to keep pumping. Well, here's kind of where it starts to get a little crazy. Your brain or certain neurons. Neurons, because different neurons have different responsibilities and sizes and stuff like that. But neurons can have 50,000 to 2 million mitochondria per neuron, depending on the neuron. Do you see why your brain monitors this a whole heck of a lot different than we think it does? Your brain says, because if this goes low, my high performance neurons can burn through their resources like that. Your brain gets terrified real stinking quick. So here's what happens. Your brain says, okay, I need glucose because glucose enters the cell and gets split into pyruvate. This is why people get sugar cravings and all this other type of stuff because they're not eating appropriately. Your brain says, I am in a constant state of please rescue me. And if the only thing it can get you to put down your throat is going to be a candy bar or shake or something like that, then it'll take it. Because your brain says, but the problem is that all of that does what? It creates chaos and a nosedive, increase in a nosedive. And your brain says, I hate the chaos and I hate the swings because glucose goes into pyruvate or goes into the cell and gets split in half into a molecule called pyruvate. Pyruvate enters the Krebs cycle, produces molecules that enter the oxidative phosphorylation, which is where oxygen goes. Glucose is second only to oxygen at the concentration and rate and stability needed for neurons to stay alive. How fast do things go bad if you stop breathing? I'm exaggerating only slightly, but I'm not joking. Glucose is second only to oxygen in its rate of delivery to neurons. Your brain requires stability, consistency, and predictability when it comes to glucose. If you can't do that, this is what your brain's going to do. Your brain says, then fine. If I can't trust you, then I'm going to start rescuing you. I'm going to start pulling you out of the lows, and I'm going to start playing the game of rescue. Guess how your brain does that? Your brain signals down to your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands start to produce cortisol and what are called catecholamines. These are also known as epinephrine and norepinephrine. These are like little pieces of TNT. What I mean by that is their target is they're known as somatic catabolic hormones, and they tear down bone, muscle, and joint tissue. They actually start to metabolize your own tissue. As a fuel source, they'll release peptides, amino acids, lipids. They'll send those to the liver, and the liver will spit out glucose. And your brain says, you're welcome. If I can't trust you to take care of me, I'm going to do it myself. And this is where things start. This is where you start to look on it. But here's the problem. Your brain and adrenals, this is a rescue pathway. This is not supposed to be happening all the time. So what I'm looking at for your blood work right now, and this is one of the things, and I've tried to dance around this in the past, and I found it's actually just far more effective to come right out and say it. Historically, a few years ago, I actually stopped working with full-time vegetarians and vegans completely. I just wouldn't accept them for care anymore because they were the least likely to turn around and actually have success, period. I don't know who, anyway, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. Here's the trick. When I say glucose, we can think of sugars, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. These are also known as your macros. Macros are a group of molecules that your body has the capability of turning into glucose to turn into pyruvate to make energy. That's why these matter. Here's the problem. If you think of like sugars and carbohydrates, now there's like complex, starchy, simple stuff like that. So carbohydrates have a little bit of a span. I like to use the fire analogy. Okay, here's what I mean by the fire analogy. The fire analogy means what? Means this is gasoline or lighter fluid. How fast does that stuff burn? It is a huge hot flame real quick and it dies out almost immediately, right? What about carbohydrates? Well, that's like your twigs and your kindling and the smaller stuff. It's actually fairly easy to light on fire, aka turn into energy and make energy. But it doesn't last long at all. And it doesn't produce a ton of heat for very long. It burns hot, burns quick, and then it's done. Then you have your mid-sized branches and your split wood and stuff like that. And what's the goal is to light these, which light that, which light this. Then it's ultimately to get to your logs, right? Get to those long burning fat molecules. Those things are huge, whether it's body fat, dietary fat, stuff like that. Here's the problem. There's a caveat. These you don't just use for energy. In fact, these are not initially intended for energy. Proteins are used for DNA synthesis. They're used for cell structure, enzymatic function, hormone function. They are used in every single cell of the body to help that cell maintain function and integrity. So your brain says, I'm going to use proteins first for cell function. Once that's complete, I'll use any extra for this. Do you see the problem I'm getting at real quick? Is if we do not understand how to calculate, count, monitor, and absolutely nail this on certain diets, then we're toast. Because that means you can never bridge the gap, which means you can never get to your long burning energy, which means your brain is going to say, I'm going to run the rescue pathway by tearing down your own tissue, or I'm just going to re engage cravings. Because your brain says, because what you don't understand is I am desperate to try and keep cells alive. The problem is this, if you look at, there's actually, I'm really glad this is now becoming a popular thing. It's called REDS, relative energy deficiency syndrome. Now, this is being studied extensively in female athletics. The concept, though, has been known for decades, just ignored in females. One of the ways they judge whether a female athlete is actually pushing herself hard enough is when she stops having a period. And these are females in their teens, 20s, stuff like that. It's actually almost like a rite of passage in athletics of have you stopped your cycle? Well, no. Okay, then you're not training hard enough. What is the body doing in a female when it stops having a cycle? Now, yes, I understand you're at the mid 40s, so we're thinking perimenopausal and stuff like that, but your brain also says, guess what? A cycle doesn't cause life or death. Your brain's obsessed with survival and it works on a survival hierarchy. So if it's sitting there saying, why do I keep growing this tissue, sloughing it off, repairing it with my immune system, building these hormones, and your brain says, screw it. I'm just going to shut it off. I don't have enough resources to go around. So your brain is basically having a budget meeting. And at this point, and over the last several years, it started to have this budget meeting and say, look, we just don't have the resources to run everything. So I'm going to start cutting off the non-essential functions. And then here's where we even get into blood work, where you start looking at like bun and bun creatinine, like why is that going low? It's not because your kidneys are having a problem. Those tests go low. Blood urea nitrogen, when it goes low, it's a malabsorption, malnutrition issue. Your body says, I actually can't turn over vital organ cells. I'm going to make those cells stay for a little bit longer. Because if you turn them over like crazy, that's where bun can go high. That means there's tissue destruction and like infection or stuff like that. Yours are staying low because your body says, I don't have the resources to repair or turn out these cells over at all. So I'm just going to keep them where they're at. So those ones go low. So we start to look at some of these trending patterns on your blood work when we start to realize, now we've got a problem. Because do you remember in high school learning about your autonomic nervous system? Your autonomic nervous system has two sides. It has a fight or flight, or it has a rest, digest, and recover. It's actually rest, digest, reproduce, and recover. Um, can't say the word and reproduce in high school though, or a bunch of sex jokes start flying and stuff like that. But what happens is these are mutually exclusive pathways. When one turns on, the other one shuts off. So blood flow to not only the digestive tract, like we talked about, getting good cell turnover, nutrient absorption, and sometimes, a lot of times, I'll have females that are like, "Well, I just feel like crap when I eat meat." Exactly. Because if you shut down proper blood flow and neurologic function and physiology to the digestive tract, you're not producing good stomach acid. You're not coordinating producing good enzymatic liver, pancreatic, gallbladder function. You're not able to break down dense, heavy proteins and stuff like that. And you feel like junk when you do it or try to because your brain says, I'm not supporting good physiology. And this includes reproductive function. Your body says, I am quite literally shutting down these functions and physiology in favor of playing the rescue game. So that's what we're looking at is you've actually been living off the rescue game for years. Your brain says, yeah, I've been saving you. And now you're starting to see the effect of I've used up my savings account. And now I'm not even living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm going to have to start tearing other tissue down. This is where the symptoms start, and they start to build over time. You've got one, then two, then three. At first, you're like, oh, I just found this on my blood work. What's going on? The cool part is you're at the start of this and you realize that, hey, I'm just at the start of this, which means it's probably a whole lot easier to turn it around now than waiting another 10 years and realizing I'm toast. My adrenals are completely shot. I'm tearing down muscle tissue. I have osteoporosis. I have malabsorption issues and GI issues because the body says, yeah, when we neglect the system for long enough, this is what happens. So again, I will say a caveat. Some people are vegetarian because of moral or religious beliefs. Totally fine with that. And my goal would be to help you accomplish that. But the trick is we have to adopt a whole new mindset on it. I think again, I use the analogy all the time of an elephant's technically a vegetarian. It's one of the largest mammals on land, right? The trick is the elephant eats like 20% of its body weight every day in food. Like absolutely enormous consumption. So if you're willing to pound down 20 to 30 pounds of, of food and vegetables and make sure we get enough complete proteins and amino acids from different sources and all that type of stuff, great, then let's do it. But it takes a pretty significant effort to try and bridge that gap to be able to hit that burn from one to the next to the next, to be able to quite literally keep the fire of energy burning in every cell. So let me know if you have any questions. That's our game plan. It's going to take us, again, you're at the start. I see cases like yours. It takes us anywhere between, heck, 4 months to a year to usually get this turned around to where it's consistent and you're off everything. I'll use nutraceuticals and supplements to help kind of get things going, but I want you off those at the end. Um, Again, you're kind of just starting on this. You're just seeing the blood work show up. You're just seeing this stuff start to come on. And so you're probably going to be closer to that like 4 to 5 month type case where it's going to be a little bit shorter, but your brain says, look, I'm only in this pattern because I have to be. And your brain's obsessed with patterns. So it takes some consistency over time to really get us in the right direction. Thanks.